Welcome to CarTechHome channel. Like this video, click on subscribe button and hit the notification bell down below to keep updated every time we post our latest car troubleshooting guide video. When a car pulls to one side when braking. This problem usually points to something involving either the front end, front tires, or front brakes. The rear tires, rear end, and rear brakes aren't really a factor here. Why? Because the front end and front tires control the steering, while the front brakes do most of the braking. Now let's try to determine what's wrong. Go out to your car, then look at the front tires. Try to determine if one has more air than the other. You can either use a tire pressure gauge or just visually inspect the bulging at the bottom of each tire and compare them that way. As you've probably guessed, unevenly inflated front tires will cause a car to pull to one side. This pulling is most noticeable when braking. If the front tires are unevenly inflated, specifically, one tire has more air than the other, then the problem is an imbalanced tire pressure is causing the pulling. As mentioned, the front tires are unevenly inflated. This is causing an imbalance in the front end, which is why the car pulls when the brakes are applied. By the way, the car probably also pulls even when the brakes aren't applied. However, when you step on the brakes, the pulling is exaggerated and therefore more noticeable. But if the front tires are evenly inflated, specifically, rule out imbalanced tire pressure. Check the front end alignment by doing a simple road test. Find a level straight road with no cars around. As you are driving down this road, slightly relax your grip on the steering wheel for a second. See if your car veers or wants to pull to either the right or left. Make sure your foot is not on the brake while doing this test. Why? Because you want to find out if your car pulls when the brakes are not applied. If the car veers to either the right or left, then this indicates the front end is out of alignment. As you learned, your car pulls to one side even when the brakes are not applied. This means there is a positioning problem among the front end parts. In other words, the front end is out of alignment. Under this condition, stepping on the brakes causes the pulling to become exaggerated, therefore very noticeable. It's possible but unlikely that there is also something wrong with the brakes. However, 9 times out of 10 in a situation like this, the cause of the problem solely lies with the front end being out of alignment. Have the front end aligned. The mechanic will first do a complete inspection of the front end before doing an alignment job. Don't be surprised if the mechanic recommends replacing one or more bad suspension parts, which he noticed during his inspection. Although he may be right, get a second opinion if this is what you're hearing. If the car did not veer to either the right or left, then a front-end related problem cannot be established. Check the brakes themselves. For this procedure, you will need 2 jack stands, a jack, and a wheel wrench. First, make sure the car is parked on a level surface and that the parking brake is on. Using the wheel wrench, loosen the wheel nuts on each of the front tires. Then, jack up one side of the car. Place a jack stand under it and lower the car onto the jack stand. Repeat this for the other side. After the front of the car is jacked up, remove the front tires to expose the brake. Examine the brake discs and look for an oily substance that may be on one of them. If this vehicle was driven just before you remove the tires, the discs will be hot. In this case, wait for them to cool before you touch them. Rub your finger across each disc to check for grease or fluid, which is not easily visible. If you notice an oily substance on one of the discs, then the contaminated disc is causing brake pull. Disc brakes can only work if there is great friction between the discs and pads. As indicated, there is an oily substance on one of the discs. This substance is reducing the friction between the disc and pads for that brake. As a result, that brake is not braking well. Since the other front brake is working, or at least working better, there is uneven braking between the two. With this, a car will pull when the brakes are applied. The oily substance on the disc is probably the result of a leak somewhere. Check the caliper and brake line. The leak may be very slight, so inspect closely. If you are not able to find anything, take your car to a reputable garage and ask the mechanic to thoroughly check the brakes. If you did not notice an oily substance on one of the discs, then rule out the contaminated disc. Take another close look at the discs, but this time check to see if one is thicker than the other. You should actually measure each disc's thickness and compare the two. A micrometer is an ideal tool for this, but since we are looking for a significant difference in thickness, a ruler will do. If one disc is thicker than the other, then mismatch of discs is causing brake pull. For a car not to pull, when the brakes are applied, the components of the left brakes must be identical to those of the right brakes. As indicated, one disc is thicker than the other. This will cause brake pull. Your car will need new, matching discs. New pads are probably not necessary, although getting them along with new discs would be ideal. How's it that one disc is thicker than the other, since discs are made of very hard metal and don't really wear out? If you had the brake work done the last time, the mechanic either machined one disc and not the other, or replaced one disc and not the other. If this brake pull problem started to occur after you had brake work done, go back to that shop and inquire about this. If one disc is not thicker than the other, then check one last item. Examine the pads of each brake unit carefully and check to see if one set of pads is thicker than the other set. The outer pad of one brake versus the outer pad of the other brake. and the inner pad of one brake versus the inner pad of the other brake. As in the last test, a ruler or any other type of rough measuring device will do, since we are looking for a significant difference in thickness. If one set of pads is thicker than the other set, then mismatched pads are causing brake pull. For a car not to pull when the brakes are applied, the components of the left brakes must be identical to those of the right brakes. Since one set of pads is thicker than the other set, this will cause brake pull. Your car will need a new matching set of pads. Along with the pads, it probably would be a good idea to have the discs machined so the pads and discs mate well together. How's that one set of pads is thicker than the other? The last time you had brake work done, it is possible the mechanic replaced one set of pads and not the other. If this brake pull problem occurs after you had brake work done, go back to that shop and inquire about this. If one set of pads is not thicker than the other set, then the possible problem is a faulty brake caliper. For a car not to pull when the brakes are applied, the components of the left brakes must work exactly the same as those of the right brakes. Disc brakes have something called a caliper, which when you step on the brake pedal, squeezes the pads against the disc. If one of the calipers is not working properly, the braking action between the left and the right brakes will be uneven, and consequently, the car will pull. Take your car to a reputable shop and ask the mechanic to check the disc brake calipers. One of them could have a sticking piston or be leaking brake fluid.